Atleti, who have been busy this window. You can see two big signings in Vargas and, of course, Ademola Lookman. I want to get your initial thoughts, Mike, because this move for Ademola Lookman, I feel like came out of nowhere, but is it one that's necessary for them?
Yeah, I think it's massive for Atletico Madrid because if you look at the body of work that's done this season, a lot of their transfers from the summer have been really disappointing, in my opinion, and that left side, a lot to be desired. And right now, if you look at everything, it's Alexander Sorloth pretty much holding the season, and any hopes of any semblance of redemption by a shoestring with the goals that he scored. And no, he's going to give you a bit of individual moments of brilliance, Ian, and he can get goals as well. And with Julián Alvarez not getting you goals, you need some attacking flair.
I quite like this move, though. I think Ademola Lookman fits perfectly with Atleti, the way they play, the hustle, the bustle. He's got a bit about him as well. I mean, this is an important player in African football, full stop, right? So he opens up Atleti to a real big market, but he's got to go there and do the business, right? Atleti are miles away from being able to compete at the top of the table. But I think a player like him can come in and have a real impact and rejuvenate Atleti, give them a little bit more of a star factor, which I think they've been lacking. Julián Alvarez not scoring goals right now, right? They need someone to really step up. I was a bit concerned about that Sorloth injury that he picked up yesterday on the head. But listen, this is a star quality player who's going in there to make some noise, that's for sure.
Talking about stars that definitely can add value to anything, let's introduce our La Liga correspondent, because Phil Kitramilides is here, always on the ground, hopefully a little bit better sunshine than we are down here on the East Coast. There's my boy, ready to go. Phil, I want to get your initial thoughts. You live on the ground. I know you've always got your ear to all the news in La Liga. What is the news in terms of the reaction to the Ademola Lookman move?
People are super excited about this. It is, as Ian was saying, it feels like a little bit of star quality coming to Atletico Madrid. I think it's a really, really interesting signing. It's a really useful signing for Atleti. It's the kind of player that they don't have on their roster at the moment. They don't have someone who dribbles past players at speed like Ademola Lookman can do. They do have Giuliano Simeone on the other wing, who basically runs very, very fast in a straight line, and he's really, really good at that. But Lookman is a different kind of player, and as you said, he can chip in with goals. His numbers for goals throughout all the seasons he's been in Serie have been really, really good. And I think his arrival is actually going to be quite interesting in terms of how the team sets up. Mike made allusions to the fact that some of the signings this summer haven't been the best. This is interesting because this 11 that we've got on the screen here doesn't include Alex Baena, who was their big money signing in the summer, one of the most expensive players that they've ever signed, and he in theory has been playing on the left. Now, is he going to be dropped? Is he going to play in midfield, or is he maybe going to play as a number 10 and there's only going to be one striker? Does that mean Sorloth isn't in the team? Does that mean Alvarez's position changes? So Lookman coming in will affect, obviously, how Atletico Madrid attack down that left wing, but also potentially the structure of that starting 11 as well.
Hey, Phil, can you put a bit of pressure on Julián Alvarez, who right now seems to be struggling? I think it's 11 games now in the Liga where he hasn't scored a goal. Massively important for Atleti to be scoring goals consistently, to be competitive in the league. I mean, Lookman, okay, playing out wide is fine if you look at the 11 you just put up there. But I would imagine at times he's going to want to push himself a little bit further forward. So is Julián Alvarez at a little bit risk here for his own place in the team?
I think for the first time, there are one or two doubts that are creeping in. He is still absolutely vital to the Atletico Madrid project. The idea is that he is their main guy. But he hasn't scored since the 1st of November, and that's just too long to go without a goal in this team. And they really, really do need his goals. They're a team that create a lot, but they have struggled to finish off chances. And when you spend 80 million on a striker, a World Cup winning forward like Julián Alvarez, you expect him to be finishing off the chances, which he hasn't been doing. I don't know if Lookman's going to put pressure on him. Maybe the idea is that he can support him in terms of chipping in with numbers that other players haven't been chipping in, because we haven't had the numbers from Alex Baena, from Thiago Almada, from Nico Gonzalez. They haven't been the scoring goals to support Julián, and it's basically only been Sorloth that's been sustaining the teams in terms of a consistent goal-scoring output. So Lookman's coming to be creative and cause havoc down that left wing, but yeah, also to score goals and support Julián, who's got to get back to scoring soon. And whether that means there is a slight structural shift, maybe Sorloth drops out and Julián is actually more of a focal point of the attack, because when Sorloth plays, Julián drops a little bit deeper. He isn't the focal point. And maybe that's one of the reasons why he hasn't necessarily been scoring as many as he should.
Phil, I want to talk about the most important at Atleti, and Julián is the face of Atleti on the field, but Cholo Simeone is the face of Atleti on and off the field right now. I mean, this is a new era of Atleti where they're spending money in the summer. They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars, Phil, and now they're spending big again. I mean, how much more pressure does this ramp up on Cholo, given that the money's being spent, but the results aren't showing up in terms of the standings, aren't showing up in terms of the trophy cabinet?
Yeah, I mean, let me just put the little asterisk by this and say that, you know, the net spend is considerably lower than the overall spend because they have sold a lot of players for big money as well. They have brought money in, so they are balancing the books. Listen, I think what's really important with Diego Simeone's situation is to actually consider that they brought in a new superstar director of football in Mateo Alemany. He's come in this season. Previously worked at Valencia, previously worked at Barcelona. And when I say he is a superstar director of football, he really is. He is behind this signing of Ademola Lookman, and he was instrumental in bringing him to Atleti. And there have been one or two signs that Simeone and Alemany aren't necessarily on the same page. Simeone has been asking for players, and Alemany has been saying, listen, we're going to try and bring some players in, but if we can't, then, you know, we've got a good squad already, and you've got the youth academy, so, you know, you do what you can. And Simeone has clearly been a little bit affronted by those kind of comments. And the last press conference he gave when he was asked about signing, he said, listen, I'm just the coach here. You know, I'll trade whatever they give me. He is not just the coach at Atletico Madrid. We know that, but he's obviously a little bit put out that maybe he's not quite the top dog at Atletico Madrid. I mean, he is, but the Alemany has come in and has a lot of power, a lot of influence in this club, the kind that Simeone had all to himself for the best part of a decade. So there's an interesting little power struggle going on here. So watch this space at Atleti.
Phil, breaking news. Simeone falling out with somebody. What's happening
Simeone
here?
sacked.
Just chill. But Phil, I do want to talk about the overall landscape of La Liga because I don't feel like there's been a lot of spend. There's been a lot of talk about the investment in the league and overall, even the hat tells me everything I need to know about your answer coming. So tell me about this window. What are you seeing in terms of these clubs and how busy they've been?
Yeah, it's been pretty barren in terms of action. If Atleti hadn't spent some money, if Atleti hadn't sold two players in Conor Gallagher and Giacomo Raspadori, they wouldn't have money to bring players in, and we'd basically have nothing to talk about. Obviously, João Cancelo's come back to Barcelona. You can see Fer Lopez there on your screen going back to Celta Vigo. There have been one or two signings which will catch the eyes of some of our viewers as well. But really, in terms of big bucks being spent, La Liga just just a different galaxy to the Premier League. You know, when a Premier League mid-table side can spend 50 million euros on a striker who scored one goal this season, I'm looking at Palace and Jürgen Strand Larsen, and that's just the kind of figures that you know almost nobody can spend in La Liga. La Liga are very, very strict on the financial fair play, and you know what? A few years ago, La Liga clubs were going out of business. They were losing money. Players weren't getting played. And now people are in a much more financial, healthy situation. So if the price is that they can't compete necessarily with the Premier League, well, you know, that's the decision that the La Liga hierarchy have taken to assure the future of the clubs and make sure that everyone gets paid. But listen, I mean, the Premier League is just in a different league of its own in terms of the money, but there is still quality. There are still some bargains that are had in La Liga, and there's still lots of players well worth watching.
I don't think there's many that can compete with the Premier League, especially with the amount of money that's been spent, no, Phil. It's kind of crazy. I mean, if you look at the Bundesliga, La Liga, Liga, I mean, you're starting to see development leagues happening around the Premier League. I mean, it essentially is the Super League now, right? So I can understand there's frustration for lots of clubs. If you were looking at this transfer window within Spain in particular, is there one club in particular that you think maybe let themselves down by not going into the transfer window, that maybe needed that one player to get over the finish line or at least compete a little bit?
Now, who could this be? What club is really underperforming? And there's one position which we've been talking about all season. Listen, Real Madrid do not have that kind of midfielder that we've been talking about all season. Would they have been able to find him in the January transfer window? Probably not. But the fact is, the closest thing you have in the Real Madrid squad to the kind of ball-playing playmaker in midfield that is Dani Ceballos, and he basically isn't playing anyway. So they could have gone out and tried to find something, but we knew that Real Madrid weren't going to be active in this transfer window. We knew that right from the start. The club had, made sure that everybody knew that they weren't going to go out and spend any money. Their squad has actually gotten weaker because they sent Endrick out on loan, didn't they? And obviously hadn't replaced him, and he's doing pretty well. So yeah, if there's one glaring piece that is missing in a pretty low-profile puzzle, it is that midfielder for Real Madrid. But I'm not surprised that they didn't go out and do it in January, because they don't tend to do much business in January.